Freddie played with a lot of intensity, power, and style.
We were on a blues festival show, and Muddy Waters was there.
You know, and tons of fun.
After Dusty Hill died without warning, every spotlight flashed straight at Billy Gibbons. Fans held their breath. Would he speak? Would he quit? Would ZZ Top simply fade away? The silence dragged on like a drum roll, and when Gibbons finally opened up, his words shook the rock world like thunder. The shock of the passing. Dusty Hill's death hit, like lightning on a clear day. One moment he was thumping his bass on tour, the next he was gone. On July 28, 2021, the music scene froze in disbelief. Dusty, the bearded backbone of ZZ Top, slipped away in his sleep at home in Houston, Texas, and even his closest brothers never saw it coming. Billy Gibbons and Frank Beard, the two men who had shared every riff with Dusty since the late 60s, delivered the heartbreaking news in a single sentence that echoed around the globe. We are saddened by the news that our compadre, Dusty Hill, has passed away in his sleep at home in Houston. The simplicity of that line felt like a punch because everyone knew an age had ended. ZZ Top was never just a rock group. They were Texas pride in guitar form. Three friends who never swapped members for more than 50 years. At the heart of it stood Dusty Hill, steady as a stone, beard flowing, shades on, fingers locked to a groove that could shake stadium walls. His thick bass lines powered Tush La Grange, and a dozen other anthems that still roar from pickup truck radios. He never shouted for attention, yet crowds found him first because his timing felt perfect. Perfect was Gibbons' own word, and Frank Beard doubled down by calling Dusty rock solid, praise that stuck because it was true. For half a century, Dusty guarded the left side of the stage like a lighthouse. Beat after beat, night after night, he stayed locked in and let the music do the bragging. That quiet strength glued ZZ Top together better than any manager ever could. So when the world woke up to the news that Dusty had left us, grief hit hard and fast. Tributes poured onto phone screens within minutes. Rock giants, blues heroes, and everyday listeners typed the same idea. A true legend. One stunned fan wrote, he was the soul of ZZ Top. Even people who only knew the band's famous beards felt the loss because Dusty's image and sound had become shorthand for classic rock. Radio stations launched non-stop ZZ Top blocks, and streaming charts exploded as millions hit play in tearful solidarity. Tattoo shops reported a sudden wave of customers asking for Dusty-inspired ink, proof that his reach went far beyond record sales. Down in Texas, local bars raised glasses in his honor, turning quiet jukebox nights into loud sing-alongs that lasted until sunrise. The pain cut deeper because just a few days earlier Dusty had stepped away from the tour with a sore hip, a move everyone thought was temporary. On stage, Gibbons even joked that Dusty said, "Give Elwood the bottom end and take it to the top." Classic Dusty. Calm, steady, dedicated. He believed the show should never stop, even if he had to rest. But the show would never look the same without him. To Billy and Frank, Dusty was more than co-worker. He was a brother they had traveled the world with, sharing tiny hotel rooms, endless bus rides, greasy diner plates, and roaring crowds. Their bond was rare in modern music, and its sudden break felt unreal. Fans cried because ZZ Top had always felt permanent. They never chased gossip, never played flashy brand games. They just delivered raw Texas blues year after year. Dusty's deep voice gave the songs a smoky edge, and his groove pulled a whole engine forward. He never tried to impress by showing off solos. He impressed by locking everything in place. That is why his passing was not just a news blast. It was a wound fell on every jukebox that ever spun Sharp Dressed Man or Gimme All Your Lovin'. People remembered first concerts, first dates, first car rides, all scored by Dusty's bass. And suddenly those memories carried an ache they never expected. Fans also remembered his kindness offstage. Small gestures like signing a batter hat for a shy teenager or quietly covering a bar tab for soldiers home on leave. Stories rushed online, each one painting Dusty as a gentle giant who cared deeply for everyday people. Dusty's death stunned everyone. Rumors swirled in chat rooms, and one huge question refused to fade. How did it really happen? Let us step back and follow the final trail. Details surrounding the death. In his last months, Dusty fought several serious health battles, but he told almost no one He had always been a tough private man, choosing silence over self-pity. Yet behind closed doors he was hurting. Chronic bursitis pounded his hips and shoulders with fiery pain, a nightmare for someone who stood for hours shaking arenas. A broken hip and a broken shoulder joined the list, proof that his frame was wearing thin. Then came ulcers, ugly stomach sores that can leak blood and spark infection. Altogether, these problems built an invisible storm inside him. Doctors warned that each flare-up drained vital energy, but Dusty kept pushing, convinced the next crowd would lift him the way music always had. Road crew members later said they saw him limping backstage, wiping sweat and pain from his face, then bursting onto the platform with a grin as bright as stage lights. Just days before the end, Dusty made a quiet decision that now feels huge. He left the tour to heal in Houston, telling his guitar tech Elwood Francis to hold the bass until he returned. Fans assumed he would bounce back soon because Dusty always did. No alarms, no dire warnings, only a brief pause. Yet friends near him saw how hard every step had become. The hip made simple movements slow. The shoulder turned each bass riff into a test. And his energy had dropped lower than anyone guessed from his steady stance under the stage lights. Although Dusty passed peacefully, the truth is his body had weathered brutal strain. Those broken bones alone did not kill him, but they signaled a deeper fight, a body that could no longer keep pace with life on the highway. Later, Billy Gibbons admitted no single cause could be nailed down. There's a lot of conjecture, he said, but it seems like it was all of it. His hip, shoulder, ulcers, it just became too much for his body. The sad reality was clear. Dusty faced a wall made of many injuries, and what twists the heart even more is knowing Dusty never wanted to slow down. He loved the roar of an audience and kept climbing on stage even when pain shouted louder than the amps. His spirit stood taller than his aching bones right up to the end. Looking back, every small warning sign, the limps, the break from touring, the quiet goodbye, paint a portrait of a man who poured every drop of strength into music until the tank hit empty. Dusty did not beg for sympathy. He wanted riffs, grooves, and smiles, and he delivered all three until he physically could not. We all watch our heroes under bright lights and imagine they are untouchable, but Dusty Hill was human. He fought pain, illness, and the slow grind of time, yet he met each challenge with grace, grit, and a grin under that giant beard. His journey, his bravery, his struggle, and most of all his sound will ring forever. Dusty Hill might have left the room, but his bass still rumbles in every bar where someone cranks La Grange and stomps the floor in time. The silent storm that hit Billy Gibbons. Dusty's sudden exit did more than shock fans. It rocked Billy Gibbons to the core. He needed space to process the loss, to accept that the friend who had stood beside him for 50 years was really gone. When Gibbons finally spoke, his voice carried stories and secrets that no one had heard before, stories that turned Dusty from a legend on stage into a brother at heart. Gibbons finally broke his silence. Billy, Dusty, and Frank shared more than chord progressions. They shared life itself. After half a century of tours, records, and endless highway miles, their friendship was welded tight. Now, with Dusty gone, Gibbons faced the hardest riff he'd ever played. But his next move would decide whether the ZZ Top flame would flicker out or blaze on. Dusty Hill's sudden passing didn't just close a chapter. It ripped the heartbeat out of ZZ Top and left the whole rock world gasping for air. Fans everywhere stared at their phones in disbelief, praying it was a mistake. Yet the sad truth held firm. In a raw chat with Classic Rock, Billy Gibbons confessed how blindsided he felt. It was very unexpected, he said. Although Dusty had his bouts with this and that, he seemed to bounce back each time. Those words cut deep because Dusty was known for iron toughness. He would shrug off pain, grab his bass, and drive the groove until the roof shook. Rehearsals and new tour had looked smooth, almost routine, and Dusty was laser-focused, laughing during sound checks and tweaking tone knobs with steady hands. The band blocked out a whole week to lock every riff, and each run-through sounded tight. Yet, when they reached the first real crowd, Gibbons sensed trouble. Dusty wasn't really out of sorts until we showed up for the first performance. They finished the set, but his spark looked dim. I could tell he wasn't 100%. Gibbons admitted the next move still haunts him. Backstage, Dusty leaned in and said he needed a doctor to pin down whatever was holding him back. I'd like to take a moment and go see the physician and see if we can iron out what's got me on the ropes. He flew home to Houston, booked an appointment, placed his trusted base in its case, kissed his wife goodnight, laid down, and never opened his eyes again. It was at night. He went to sleep, and it was lights out. Gibbons shared, each word heavy with shock. It was totally unexpected. The flood of grief hit Gibbons like a crashing wave. In a talk with Variety, he admitted, "I had a couple of moments with the waterworks coming and going, and I really felt a sense of relief. I said, gee whiz, maybe I am human after all." After 50 years side by side, he had lost family, not just a bandmate. Gibbons opened up about Dusty's silent battles, bursitis that burned his joints, arthritis that stiffened his fingers, ulcers that twisted his stomach, plus grinding aches in hip and shoulder. Let's face it, you don't necessarily pass away from a broken shoulder or broken hip, he explained. But he was moving a little slow. He said, "Boy, this shoulder and hip are really starting to become a problem." No one believed those aches could end life because Dusty always pushed through, yet they were warning flares. There was no dramatic last scene, only a gentle drift into sleep, like the final note of a blues solo fading into the night air. It was off to dreamland and beyond. Gibbons said, capturing the quiet tragedy of that night. Fans tried to find comfort knowing Dusty left peacefully, yet the suddenness still stung. Reflecting on the loss, Gibbons echoed guitarist Steve Cropper, who once mourned a comrade by saying, "I feel like I've lost a great friend," and that went well beyond another musician. Gibbons felt exactly the same. We felt that way about Dusty. We lost a great friend. Memorials sprang up in record shops from Texas to Tokyo. Classic car clubs cruised in slow lines with La Grange blasting from radios, honoring the man whose riffs powered so many road trips. Fans lit candles, sketched Dusty's famous beard on poster boards, and shared stories about meeting him after shows. The internet filled with clips of Dusty laughing, Dusty singing, Dusty tipping his hat to front row kids. Each memory proved how deeply he touched everyday life. Grief quickly turned to anxious questions. Could ZZ Top breathe without Dusty's booming lines and cool swagger? Gibbons and drummer Frank Beard asked themselves the same thing, yet Dusty had already given them a shining roadmap. The show must go on. Long before the Beard became legend, Billy Gibbons was a Houston kid soaked in melody and rhythm. His dad conducted orchestras, filling the house with sweeping strings, while local radio pumped out Muddy Delta blues. Young Billy studied classical scales in the morning and slid into blues licks at night. Teen years brought B. King, Jimmy Reed, and Muddy Waters booming from a pocket-sized transistor, fueling dreams bigger than the Texas sky. He formed the Saints, then the Moving Sidewalks, a psychedelic blues unit that mixed light shows and fuzz pedals. Their brightest moment came opening for Jimi Hendrix, who praised Gibbons as a blazing young guitarist. Even that roar didn't break them into nationwide fame, and Billy learned early that perseverance outruns hype. Dusty faced his own crossroads. Born in Dallas, he jammed with his brother Rocky in neighborhood blues crews. Their group American Blues also featured Frank Beard. Friction sparked when Rocky clung to strict blues, while Dusty wanted to blend rock punch for a wider crowd. Staying with the band meant stepping away from family loyalty and betting on bold ideas. He took that risk with eyes wide open. The late 60s were rough for daring musicians. Record labels doubted hybrids. Promoters favored coastal acts, and regional groups often ran out of fuel before they hit national charts. When the Moving Sidewalks folded, Gibbons almost had to start over, stacking amps back into his parents' garage while planning his next move. Then 1969 struck, like lightning with a Texas drawl. Gibbons on guitar, Dusty on bass, and Beard on drums formed ZZ Top. Blues, grit, boogie bounce, and pure Texas swagger fused into something brand new, and the trio refused to mimic anyone. Their self-made vibe birthed hits like La Grange, Sharp Dressed Man, and Legs. 3 men, 1 pulse, an unbreakable bond that survived disco, grunge, and every trend in between. Yet they never forgot the early grind. Empty bars, rusty vans, greasy diner meals, and skeptical record reps hammered in lessons about grit, loyalty, and creative control. Those tough nights forged the powerhouse the world later adored. Dusty's departure cracked that solid wall. Gibbons admitted the impact was spiritual. It was an unexpected reality that landed not only in my lap, but allowed me to hunker down and get serious with Mr. Beard. For days they sat in silence, replaying old live tapes, letting Dusty's bass thunder through speakers while they searched for a sign. The sign was already in Gibbons's memory. Before stepping off the road, Dusty picked longtime guitar tech Elwood Francis as a stand-in and insisted, "The show must go on. Don't forget it." He even shook his finger to lock the words in place. That single sentence became their compass, a bright arrow pointing forward. Rather than fold, Gibbons and Beard chose to honor Dusty the way he wanted, by making music louder than ever. As an honor to the legacy of the band, we felt it would be more suitable to try to pick up sticks and carry on, rather than just throw in the towel. Gibbons announced in a voice that trembled yet stayed firm. He later told cheering crowds, ZZ Top will soldier on, a vow packed with respect and fire. Elwood stepping up was a family move, not a marketing stunt. After 30 years of tuning guitars, guarding gear, and keeping the roadshow glued together, he already shared the band's DNA. More importantly, Dusty had tapped him personally. Gibbons said Elwood's arrival sparked fresh energy. It's quite a trip having Elwood step in and help keep the ball rolling. He smiled during rehearsal. He's adding a great bit of enthusiasm. When I see Frank Beard smiling for the first time in 30 years, I know something good's happening. That grin told an entire story of healing. By coincidence, Elwood came out of lockdown sporting a full beard that brushed the top of his guitar, keeping the classic image alive without even trying. Though raised on punk speed and snarls, his drive locked perfectly into the ZZ Top groove, proving that passion beats genre every time. Gibbons even joked the trio almost felt like a brand new band. You might even consider us being somewhat new as a band, which we are. It's really entertaining, I'll say that. He laughed. By honoring Dusty Hill's final wish, Billy Gibbons and ZZ Top prove resilience is more than hanging on. It is living with purpose. As long as stage lights glow and amplifiers growl, Dusty's spirit thunders through every note. His last words still echo across packed arenas, reminding everyone why the music never stops. The show must go on. Beyond Dusty Hill's final wish, an ocean of love rolled in, and the golden legacy he forged still roars through every riff ZZ Top blasts out today. Legacy and tribute moments. In the first few days after Hill passed, fans and musicians everywhere mourned a giant who shaped whole generations with thunderous bass. Street corners, radio station, and social feeds filled with nothing but Dusty, old live clips, photos of worn-out concert tickets, and endless strings of crying face emojis. Inside the ZZ Top circle, a vital talk began that sprang straight from Dusty's last request. Billy Gibbons, a brother in music for 50 years, revealed that Dusty left one crystal clear rule: keep the show rolling. Bringing Elwood Francis to the front was not just business, it was heart. Elwood had lived in the ZZ Top crew for decades, tuning guitars, hauling amps, and soaking up the magic at Dusty's side. Dusty believed that if anyone could guard the groove with real respect, it was Elwood, and Gibbons honored that wish without blinking. The first night Elwood walked on stage beside Billy and Frank, the crowd exploded with cheers because they knew Dusty himself had picked the man holding the bass. Elwood's enthusiasm really lit a spark. Gibbons later said, "It helped us keep the engine running when it would have been easier to stall." One of the most powerful tributes came when the band ripped into the hit Tush. Gibbons stepped away from the mic and let Dusty's recorded voice thunder through the arena while Dusty's famous hat sat on a lonely stand in blue spotlight. Fans cheered, cried, sang every word, and swore they felt their hero right there on stage. That weather-beaten hat was never just wardrobe. It was part of Dusty's spirit. Lifting it on the stand turned a simple prop into a shrine, letting every fan say goodbye yet feel him near. At later shows, the band even placed a lone bass next to the hat, strings gently humming from the monitors, as if Dusty still warmed up backstage. Love kept pouring. Rock icons shared raw memories online. Ozzy Osbourne posted, "Rest in peace, Dusty Hill. A great musician and a great guy. I always enjoyed being around him." Slash echoed the respect. Dusty Hill was a rock and roll legend through and through. His tone, his style, his presence, it was all unmistakable. Sad loss for music. Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers added, Dusty Hill was one of the first bass players I admired. He made that bottom end move like thunder. Respect always. Paul Stanley of Kiss called Dusty a gentleman and a true original. His groove was a glue of ZZ Top. Then shouted, "Wow, Dusty Hill, what an icon." ZZ Top's sound was rooted in that deep groove. A gentleman and a true original. Country singer Jason Isbell wrote, "Dusty Hill helped define an era. You felt his bass in your chest when it played, and it made you want to move." Blues ace Joe Bonamassa praised a lifelong dedication, saying, "Dusty never strayed from roots. He loved the blues and brought it to the masses with style and humor. These messages rolled in faster than any press blast. Rap stars, country pickers, and jazz greats all tipped hats to the man whose pocket-deep groove broke every wall." Each post painted Dusty as warm, funny, and full of quiet backstage advice, proving his reach was bigger than a single scene. Fans crafted their own tributes. Cowboy hats appeared on fence posts at backyard jams, socials flooded with vintage clips, and teenagers learned his bass lines in living rooms while shouting "Tush" at the ceiling. In Houston, artists painted a mural of Dusty's bearded grin, locking his image into city brick forever. Car clubs rolled downtown with La Grange blasting so loud it rattled street signs. Gibbons and Frank Beard felt the wave hit hard and offered heartfelt thanks. "We've been overwhelmed by the love for Dusty." Gibbons said, "It means everything to us that so many people saw what we saw in him. A true legend, a brother, and a man who lived for the music." He admitted to late-night tears while scrolling through thousands of fan stories. City leaders in Houston even declared a Dusty Hill Day, draping banners with a silhouette along parade routes, while local radio spun a full day of deep cuts. Charity shows bloomed from Austin to Anchorage, raising money for music classes in Dusty's honor. Streaming numbers shot up 300%, and reaction videos filled feeds with wide-eyed teens discovering that thick Texas groove. What do you think of Billy Gibbons' heartfelt tribute and fierce plan to drive ZZ Top forward? Drop your thoughts below. We want to hear every single note.